day began like any other for the human named Daniel. He had been working for months as a supply runner on the alien world of Valora, a planet known for its giant palaces and strange customs. His job was simple. Deliver goods to the royal palace gates, sign the papers, and leave quickly. He liked keeping his head down. He wanted no trouble, but trouble had other plans. As he walked through the golden gates of the Valoran palace that morning, Daniel noticed the guards looked tense. Their long spears glowed with alien energy, and their eyes followed his every move. Usually, they ignored him. Today, however, something was different. A heavy silence filled the air. It was the kind of silence that made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. He carried the crate on his shoulder, stepping carefully across the marble floor. The palace always made him feel small. Its ceilings stretched higher than any human building he had seen. Its walls shimmered with colors that shifted like liquid light. The aliens around him, tall and graceful, walked as if they floated. Daniel felt like a clumsy intruder among gods. When he reached the throne room door, 2 armored guards stopped him. One spoke in a sharp tone. "The princess is holding court. You must deliver directly inside." Daniel froze. That had never happened before. He was just a delivery runner. Why would a princess need to see him? Still, he nodded and walked in. The throne room was massive. Its pillars shone like crystal, and long banners of alien silk waved in the air though no wind touched them. At the far end sat the royal throne, and upon it was her, the tiny alien princess. She was small even compared to her people, barely reaching Daniel's chest in height. Her skin shimmered pale silver. Her hair fell like a river of white light, and her large glowing eyes locked onto him the moment he entered. She looked delicate, almost fragile. Yet the room seemed to bend around her, as if even the air obeyed her presence. Daniel bowed awkwardly, clutching the crate. "Delivery for the kitchens, princess," he said in a low voice, hoping to drop it off and leave. But the princess did not look at the crate. She stared at him. Her lips curled into a small smile, and then she stood. The court gasped softly as she walked down the steps. Her steps were light, her eyes fixed on him like a hunter who had found prey. Daniel felt his stomach twist. What was happening? Why was she coming closer? The princess stopped only a breath away from him. Tilting her head, she studied his face as if he were some rare object. Then, her voice rang through the chamber. Clear, high, and sharp. "This human," she said, pointing her delicate finger at Daniel, "will be my fiancé." The crate almost slipped from his hands. The throne room erupted. Voices shouted in shock. Nobles gasped. Guards shifted uneasily. Some even laughed nervously. Daniel's mind went blank. He blinked once, twice, certain he had misheard. Fiancé? What in the stars was going on? I think there's a mistake," he stammered. But the princess ignored his words. She raised her chin proudly. "By ancient law, the one I choose shall be bound to me. He belongs to me now." The court fell into silence again. All eyes turned to Daniel. Panic surged through him. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't royalty. He was just a delivery worker. Why him? Out of all the people in the palace, why had she chosen him? The guards moved closer, their spears glowing brighter. One leaned toward him and whispered harshly, "Bow, human. If you refuse, you insult the princess, and insults to the crown are punished by death." Daniel's heart hammered in his chest. He looked at the princess. She stood calmly, as if her word alone could shape fate. Her glowing eyes held no doubt, no hesitation. She had chosen him, and nothing could change it. Slowly, with shaking hands, Daniel set the crate down and bent one knee. His voice trembled as he forced the words out. "As you command, princess." A satisfied murmur spread across the court. The nobles whispered behind jeweled hands. The guards lowered their weapons, but Daniel's blood ran cold. He had just been bound to a future he did not choose. The princess smiled for the first time. A strange, unreadable smile. She reached forward, touching his shoulder with her delicate hand. The touch sent a chill down his spine. It was not gentle. It was a claim. "My fiancé," she said softly, but her voice carried through the room like thunder. "Will remain by my side." Daniel wanted to shout, to argue, to run, but the weight of alien law pressed on him. His life had just changed, and he had no power to stop it. That night, as he was escorted to a grand chamber meant for royalty, his mind raced with questions. Why had she chosen him? What game was being played in the shadows of this alien palace? And most terrifying of all, what would happen now that he was tied to a princess he barely knew? Daniel could not sleep that night. He lay on a massive bed of alien silk, staring at the glowing ceiling above. His heart was racing. The princess's words kept echoing in his mind. "This human will be my fiancé." It didn't feel real, yet the walls around him were real. The guards outside his door were real, and the weight of his new chains was very real. By morning, the palace buzzed with whispers. Servants bowed when they saw him. Nobles stared as he walked past. Some glared with jealousy, others with disgust. A human in the royal wing was unheard of. Daniel felt their eyes like knives. He wanted to disappear, but the guards stayed close, reminding him he was no longer free. The moment of truth came when he was summoned to the throne hall again. This time the space was decorated for ceremony. Banners of gold hung from the crystal pillars. Alien flowers glowed in tall vases, and music floated in the air. The nobles were already gathered. Their clothes shimmered like living jewels, and their eyes burned with curiosity. At the center of it all stood the tiny princess. Her silver skin shimmered under the light, and her glowing eyes scanned the room with pride. When she saw Daniel, she smiled. Not a shy smile, but a sharp one. The smile of someone who already knew the outcome. Daniel's steps grew heavy. He wanted to run, but the guards pressed him forward. His throat was dry, his mind screaming. He did not agree to this. He never asked for this. Yet here he was, walking straight into a cage that looked like a crown. A tall priest with 6 golden arms raised his voice. "By decree of the princess and by ancient law, the human shall be bound to her. None may object, for her word is final." Daniel's stomach dropped. He looked around desperately, hoping someone would laugh and say this was a mistake. But the nobles only watched, waiting for him to kneel. The princess lifted her hand, signaling him to stand before her. Her voice rang out clear. "This human is mine. By my will, he is my fiancé." Daniel clenched his fists. He wanted to shout, "I don't belong to you." But when he opened his mouth, he saw the guards' weapons shift toward him. Their glowing tips hummed with deadly power. A single wrong word and he would die right there. The princess's eyes locked onto his. Her gaze was calm but strangely urgent. He could not read her, but he felt she was silently begging him to go along with it. His chest tightened. He dropped to one knee. The way he had done the day before, his voice trembled. "As you command, princess." The room erupted with applause. The nobles clapped their jeweled hands together. The priest lowered his many arms and declared, "The bond is sealed." Daniel felt his world collapse. He was now officially her fiancé. His life had been rewritten without his consent. The princess stepped closer, her tiny form almost fragile next to him. She touched his arm gently and whispered so only he could hear, "Trust me." Those 2 words made no sense. Why should he trust her? She had dragged him into this nightmare. Yet the look in her glowing eyes was not cruel. It was desperate, as if she was fighting for something he couldn't see. After the ceremony, Daniel was paraded through the palace halls at her side. Nobles bowed to her, but their eyes flicked to him with suspicion and hatred. He could hear their whispers. "Why a human? He is unworthy. This is a disgrace." The princess ignored them all. She kept her hand lightly on his arm. Walking with her head high, Daniel felt trapped. Yet part of him noticed the way she leaned on him ever so slightly, as if she truly needed him there. That night, in his new chamber, he paced back and forth. His mind was chaos. Why him? What was the meaning behind her choice? Was this just power or something darker? Before he could find answers, the door creaked open. The princess slipped inside quietly. Her glowing eyes softened when they met his. For a moment, she looked less like a ruler and more like a frightened girl. "You must hate me," she said softly. Her voice trembled. "But I had no choice." Daniel stared at her, anger and confusion mixing inside him. "No choice? You had all the power in that room. You forced me." She lowered her head. "If I had not claimed you, I would already be dead. There are those who want me gone. By choosing you, I used an old law. It protects both of us. You are tied to me now, and they cannot touch me while you stand beside me." His breath caught. The pieces began to fall into place. This wasn't just about her wanting him. This was about survival. She looked up at him, eyes shining with something close to fear. "Please, stay with me. Even if you hate me. Please, just until it is safe." Daniel's anger softened. He still felt trapped, but now he understood. She was desperate, cornered, using the only weapon she had, him. He sighed, rubbing his face. His life had changed overnight. He had been forced into a role he never wanted. Yet as he looked at the tiny princess trembling before him, he realized something. This was not just her fight anymore. It was his too. The palace at night was a dangerous place. The marble halls were silent, but shadows moved in the corners. Daniel could feel it. He had been escorted back to his chamber after the forced engagement ceremony, but sleep refused to come. His mind twisted with questions. Why him? Why would a princess tie herself to a simple human supply runner? The soft sound of the door sliding open broke the silence. Daniel spun quickly. His fists clenched, but instead of a guard, it was her. The tiny princess stepped into the chamber quietly, her silver skin glowing faintly in the dim light. She closed the door behind her and pressed her back against it as if she feared someone was following. Daniel frowned. "You again," he muttered. He still remembered the weight of the ceremony. The whispers, the cold stares. He was angry, but also confused. The princess raised her hand, begging him not to shout. Her voice was low, trembling. "Please, do not draw attention. They must not know I'm here." Daniel narrowed his eyes. "And who exactly are they?" She moved closer, her tiny form almost fragile. Her glowing eyes darted toward the window before returning to him. "The assassins?" she whispered. The word felt heavy, chilling. "They want me dead." Daniel blinked. "Assassins?" She nodded quickly. "My father is gone. The throne is weak, and many want power. I am the last heir. They fear me. They hunt me. If I fall, they win." Her hands trembled as she spoke. For the first time, Daniel saw not a proud ruler but a frightened girl trapped in a golden cage. "And what does that have to do with me?" Daniel asked, his voice sharp but quieter now. The princess took a breath, steadying herself. "There is an ancient law, older than the throne itself. If I declare a bond with someone, I gain protection. No blade, no poison. No plot can touch me directly. The law is sacred. Even my enemies cannot break it. But there is a price. The one I choose is also bound. If I die, so does he." Her words sank deep. Daniel stared at her, stunned. His heart pounded. "So when you called me your fiancé, I was saving my life," she whispered. Her glowing eyes met his. "And yours too, though you don't believe it yet." Daniel's jaw tightened. Anger burned in him. "You dragged me into your war. I never asked for this." Her lips trembled. "Would you have let me die if I begged you then? If I stood in front of that court and told them the truth? They would have ended me before the day was done. I had no time, no choice. I saw you and I chose." Daniel turned away. His hands gripped the edge of the table until his knuckles turned white. He wanted to curse, to walk away, but something in her voice stopped him. It was not arrogance, not power. It was fear. Silence filled the chamber for a long moment. Finally, Daniel asked, his voice softer, "Why me? Out of everyone in that palace, why me?" The princess's eyes softened. She stepped closer. Her voice shook but carried truth. Because you are human, you are outside their politics. You are not tangled in their games. They cannot buy you. They cannot bribe you. And when I looked at you, I felt safe. The words hit Daniel harder than he expected. Safe. No one had ever looked at him and said that before. He sighed, rubbing his face. This is insane. I'm a delivery runner, not a warrior. I can't protect you from assassins. You already did, she whispered. Daniel looked at her sharply, and she nodded. When you knelt before me, they could not touch me. Your choice saved me, even if you did not mean it. Her words struck deep. Daniel felt the weight of them in his chest. He thought about the way the guards had watched him, the way the nobles had whispered. Already he was part of this deadly game. Already he was marked. The princess stepped even closer, so near he could see the faint shimmer of her skin. I know this is unfair. I know you hate me now. But please, if you leave me, I will not live through the week. Stay with me, at least until I can make it safe. Daniel looked at her. Really looked at her. For all her glowing power and royal commands, she was trembling. Her hands clenched tightly at her sides. Her glowing eyes glistened with tears she refused to shed. Something inside him shifted. He still felt trapped, still furious. But he could not deny what he saw. She was not a monster. She was a girl fighting to survive. Fine, Daniel said at last, his voice low but steady. I'll stay, but not because of your law. Not because you forced me. I'll stay because I don't abandon people who are in danger. Her eyes widened. A soft breath escaped her lips, and for the first time, she looked almost relieved. Thank you, she whispered. Her tiny form relaxed, but the weight in the room remained heavy. As she turned to leave, Daniel spoke again. But princess, hear me. If I'm going to stand by your side, I need the truth. No more secrets. She paused at the door, her silver hair glowing in the faint light. Her voice was soft, almost broken. The truth, Daniel, is that they will not stop until I am gone. And now, they will come for you too. The door closed behind her, leaving him alone. The silence pressed in on him. His heart pounded with a new understanding. He was no longer just a supply runner. He was a shield, a target, a fiancé by law, and as he lay back on the bed, staring into the glowing ceiling, one thought echoed through his mind. His life was no longer his own. The palace looked calm in daylight, but Daniel now knew better. Beneath the marble floors and shining banners, danger crawled like poison in the air. He could feel it watching him. He could feel it waiting. That morning, he was escorted through the palace gardens with the princess at his side. The gardens were beautiful, glowing flowers spread light over crystal fountains. Birds with silver feathers sang from the branches of strange trees. To any outsider, it would have seemed peaceful, but Daniel saw the way the guard's eyes kept scanning the rooftops. He noticed how the princess never let go of his sleeve. She walked close to him as if every shadow threatened her life. Nobles passed by, bowing stiffly. Some sneered at Daniel, their whispers like knives in the air. A human fiancé. An insult to the throne. How long until he fails to protect her? He tried to ignore them, but their words burrowed deep. He wasn't a warrior, not a guard, just a man who used to deliver crates. How could he fight assassins? Later that day, he found himself standing on the balcony of his chamber. His eyes scanned the rooftops of the palace. At first, he thought he imagined it, but then he saw it, movement. A cloaked figure slipped across the tiles, fast and silent. Daniel's chest tightened. He turned quickly, rushing into the hall. Guards? He called, but before he could finish, a sharp sound split the air. Something whizzed past his ear and struck the wall behind him. A blade, long and thin, quivered where it had landed. The assassin had struck. Daniel ducked as another blade flew past. He grabbed the nearest chair and held it like a shield. His heart raced. The cloaked figure stood on the balcony now, a mask covering its face. Its glowing eyes locked on him, cold and merciless. "Princess?" Daniel shouted. but she was already there, rushing into the room with her guards. Her glowing eyes widened when she saw the assassin. The guards moved fast, but the assassin leapt back, disappearing into the shadows with impossible speed. Silence followed, broken only by the princess's sharp breath. She looked at Daniel, her face pale. "They have already begun," she whispered. Her hand clutched his arm so tightly it hurt. "They will not stop now." Daniel's hand still shook. He stared at the blades in the wall. His chest was tight. He had never been in a real fight before, never been hunted, and yet, he knew this was only the beginning. That night, the princess refused to return to her own chamber. Instead, she insisted on staying near him. Guards filled the hall, but still her fear was plain. Daniel sat across from her, watching the way her small hands trembled. She tried to hide it, but she could not. He finally spoke, his voice low. "You knew this would happen, didn't you?" She nodded, her glowing eyes heavy with sadness. "Yes, I knew they would not wait long." Daniel leaned back, frustration and fear mixing in his chest. "Then why choose me? I can't fight like your guards. I'm not a warrior." Her gaze lifted, sharp but soft at the same time. "Because they expect warriors, they can kill warriors. But you are different, unpredictable. A human is outside their plans, and..." She paused, her voice quiet. "Because I trust you." Her words unsettled him more than the blades. Trust. It was too heavy, too much, and yet, part of him couldn't let go of them. The following day, training began. The guards handed him a weapon. An alien staff that glowed faintly with energy. Daniel fumbled with it. His movements clumsy. The guards sneered, unimpressed. But the princess stood nearby, her hands folded, her glowing eyes following every swing. She never laughed, never mocked. She only said softly, "You will learn, I know you will." Her belief unsettled him even more, because he wanted to prove her right. That evening, when he walked the palace halls alone, he felt it again. The shadow, his steps slowed, his ears straining. A chill ran down his spine. He turned quickly, and for a moment he saw them. A figure at the end of the hall, cloaked in black, watching him, then gone like smoke. Daniel stood frozen. He knew what this meant. He was not only a shield for the princess, he was a target now. When he returned to his chamber, the princess was waiting. She looked at him, her voice quiet but firm. "They will keep coming. They will try to break you, to scare you away from me. If you leave, they win. If you stay, you become my strength." Daniel sank into a chair, rubbing his face with both hands. His life had been simple once. Now he was hunted, tied to an alien princess, carrying the weight of her survival. He looked at her, saw the fear she tried to hide, and the strange faith she placed in him. He let out a long breath, then let them come. He said softly, "If I'm already marked, I might as well fight." The princess's eyes widened, her lips parted in surprise, and for the first time since he met her, she smiled. It was not a smile of pride, nor command, but something gentler, almost human. But outside the palace walls, in the dark streets of Valora, another shadow moved, cloaked and silent, sharpening its blades. The assassins had failed once, but they would not fail again. The days that followed were heavy with tension. Every corner of the palace seemed filled with whispers. Every shadow seemed alive with danger. Daniel woke each morning with his heart already pounding. He knew assassins were near, waiting for the right chance. But he also knew he could not run. Not anymore. The princess kept him close wherever she went. At first, Daniel thought it was just for appearances, a way to make her enemies hesitate. But as hours turned into days, he began to see something different. She never let her hand stray far from his arm. She spoke to him in whispers, sharing thoughts she never said to anyone else, and at night, when the palace grew quiet, she would sit in his chamber instead of her own, refusing to be apart from him. Training continued. The guards were harsh. They mocked him for his clumsy movements and slow reflexes. But Daniel refused to give up. Sweat dripped down his face as he swung the glowing staff again and again. His muscles screamed, his hands blistered. Yet he kept going, every time he stumbled. He remembered the assassin's blades. Every time he faltered. He remembered the princess's trembling hands. She watched him often, her glowing eyes wide. One night, when he finally collapsed on the training floor, she rushed to his side. Her small hands tried to lift the heavy staff from him. "You push too hard," she whispered. "You will break yourself." Daniel gave a tired laugh. "Better I break now than when a real blade comes at me." The princess stared at him, silence heavy between them. Then, slowly, she said, "You are different. No one else would suffer for me like this. Not even my own kin." Daniel looked at her, sweat dripping from his brow. "Maybe that's why you chose me," he muttered, half a joke, half a truth. Her lips curved into the faintest smile, and she did not deny it. The bond between them grew in ways Daniel didn't expect. He had thought she was cold, proud, and untouchable, but she laughed sometimes when she forgot her crown. Her voice softened when she spoke of her childhood. Nights spent hiding from the cruel whispers of nobles who called her too small, too weak to rule. She confessed that she had always felt alone, until the day she declared him her fiancé. Daniel listened. Sometimes he offered no answer, only his presence. Yet he noticed how her shoulders seemed lighter when she spoke. He noticed how her glowing eyes shone not with command but with relief. One evening, while walking through the garden under the twin moons, she stopped suddenly. Her gaze lifted to the stars. "Do you regret it?" she asked. Her voice was quiet, trembling. "Being tied to me." Daniel hesitated. His life had been stolen from him. He had been thrown into danger he never asked for. Yet as he looked at her, standing there with silver light painting her delicate features, he realized regret was not the word. "I regret the danger," he admitted softly, "but not being by your side." Her eyes widened, glowing brighter than the moons above. For a moment, she looked less like a princess and more like a girl holding on to hope. That night, Daniel felt the shift fully. He was no longer just protecting her because of law. Something deeper pulled at him now. He wanted her safe. Not because he was forced, but because he could not bear the thought of losing her. The next morning, danger reminded him that their bond was fragile. As they crossed a corridor, a servant passed by with a tray. It seemed ordinary, but Daniel's instinct screamed. He grabbed the princess and pulled her aside. The tray shattered as a hidden blade shot from underneath it, slicing the air where she had stood. The assassin disguised as a servant hissed in fury, but before the guards could even react, Daniel slammed into the cloaked figure. The two struggled fiercely. Daniel's body moved not with skill, but with raw determination. He pinned the assassin long enough for the guards to strike. When it was over, the princess clung to him, her glowing eyes wide, her voice shaking. "You saved me." Daniel's chest heaved with exhaustion. He wanted to say it had been luck, but deep inside, he knew it was more than luck. He had chosen to act, chosen to throw himself into danger without hesitation, and she had seen it. Later, when they sat alone, she touched his hand gently, her small fingers barely wrapping around his. "You are more than I ever hoped for," she whispered. "I thought I had chained you, but you chose me instead." Daniel looked at her, his heart pounding. He could not deny it anymore. The bond between them was not just law, not just survival. It was trust, fragile but growing stronger each day. But as their connection deepened, so did the shadows around them. The court's whispers grew sharper, the nobles' eyes colder. Assassins lurked still, waiting for the perfect strike. And Daniel knew the truth. Their bond was not only their strength. It was also the very reason enemies would never stop hunting them. The palace walls were built from crystal and gold, but Daniel now knew they hid poison inside. Every step he took was watched. Every word whispered in corridors carried weight. He had begun to sense when eyes followed him. When nobles stopped talking the moment he entered, it was no longer just suspicion. It was clear. Someone inside the palace wanted the princess dead. The princess herself felt it too. She grew quieter each day, her glowing eyes darting toward corners as if she expected blades from the shadows. She trusted Daniel more than anyone now, refusing to walk the halls without his arm close to hers. Yet trust could not keep enemies away, and the court was thick with smiles that hid daggers. One evening, the royal council gathered. Nobles sat in rows, their jeweled robes glittering like fire. Daniel stood at the princess's side. He hated these meetings. The words of the nobles dripped with venom disguised as politeness. A tall noble with red skin and gold eyes stood, bowing to the princess. "Your Highness, many question this engagement. They whisper of tradition, of honor, of bloodlines. Surely a human is not worthy of your throne." His voice was calm, but every word was meant to wound. The princess lifted her chin, her voice firm. "By law, my choice cannot be challenged." The noble smiled thinly. "Of course, by law, but laws bend when enough voices speak, and there are many who see danger in tying our crown to an outsider." His eyes slid toward Daniel, sharp as blades. Daniel's fists clenched. He wanted to shout, but the princess squeezed his arm lightly, reminding him to stay silent. Her glowing eyes never wavered as she stared the noble down. After the council ended, Daniel felt the tension in the air thicken. He walked the princess back to her chamber. Her hand shook slightly in his grasp. "They are not speaking of doubt anymore," she whispered. "They are speaking of betrayal." That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He sat by the window, staring at the glowing city beyond the palace walls. His gut twisted with unease. Something was wrong. The attack would not come from outside. It would come from within. His suspicion proved true sooner than he expected. During a feast 2 nights later, the palace shone with music and laughter. Tables overflowed with food. Nobles raised glasses of glowing wine. The princess sat beside him at the head table. Wearing a crown of silver light, Daniel forced himself to stay calm, though his eyes scanned every face, every shadow. Then it happened. A servant carrying a jug stumbled. Wine spilled across the table. Nobles gasped. Daniel's eyes caught it. Too late. The servant's hand slipped beneath the table, pulling out a dagger. Daniel moved on instinct. He grabbed the princess and pulled her back. The dagger flashed in the light. The guards rushed forward, but the assassin moved fast, striking with desperate fury. Daniel blocked the blade with his arm, pain exploding across his skin. He shoved the princess behind him, shouting, "Guards!" The assassin was caught quickly, dragged away screaming. But the damage was already done. The court had seen it, and the whispers grew louder. Later, when the hall emptied, Daniel and the princess sat in silence, his arm bandaged, her glowing eyes wide with unspoken fear. "Finally," she whispered. It was not a servant. It was a noble's hand guiding that blade. Daniel frowned. "How do you know?" "Because I recognized the crest on his sleeve," she said. Her voice was heavy. "It belongs to my uncle." Daniel froze. The uncle. The one who sat in the council with a calm smile. The one who had spoken against their bond only days ago. The betrayal cut deep, not from some faceless enemy, but from blood, from family. Her voice shook. "He has always wanted the throne. He sees me as weak, unfit, and now, with you by my side, he fears me more. That is why he moves openly." Daniel's chest burned with anger. "Then he will keep trying until he succeeds." The princess lowered her head, her silver hair falling across her face. "Yes, and if he wins, not only will I die, but so will you. That is the law." Silence filled the chamber. Daniel stared at her, seeing the weight she carried, seeing how alone she truly was, and something inside him hardened. "I don't care about his throne," Daniel said firmly, his voice steady. "But I won't let him take you from me." Her eyes lifted, shimmering with tears. "You would stand against a royal noble, against the court itself." Daniel met her gaze without hesitation. "If I must." She trembled, reaching for his hand. Her small fingers tightened around his. For the first time, she looked not like a princess bound by law, but like a girl clinging to the only person she trusted. That night, as the palace guards whispered of treachery and betrayal, Daniel made a silent vow. He had been forced into this role, dragged into a web of danger. But now, the choice was his. He would stand between the princess and every blade, even if the blades came from her own blood. And somewhere deep in the palace, the uncle sat in the shadows, a glass of glowing wine in his hand. His lips curled into a smile. The first attempt had failed, but he had no doubt, soon, the throne would be his.